Live. Now we are live. I'm gonna play this intro right now.
Third and stage and roll.
The intersection of science and society.
The intersection of science and society.
Welcome to another episode of Beta Sheep.
I say you can't have enough explosions at the end of that.
That was a lot of explosions. A lot of explosions.
Michael Bay would be proud.
Oh man, that was amazing. What do y'all think of the intro?
I guess I can't do this on a phone because holy moly, it sounds really messed up over a phone speaker. That's for sure.
Okay, well yeah, you're playing it through a third-party speaker, and then of course I'm voicing everything through this other stuff. But either way, man, you got this. It sounds good. I mean, your voice is on there, by the way.
It is? That's awful.
Yeah, your voice is on there. So is Rogelio's.
Oh no, Roy, they're gonna get us.
Okay.
It's all good.
All right, guys. Oh, we got Summer. Summer's just joining us. That's awesome.
Real?
Randall, you want to go ahead and read us in on our Beta Sheep episode 6?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Beta Sheep. With us today are Miguel.
Hello.
Roy.
Hello, all.
Eliud.
Hello.
And Summer. Oh, who's kind of having some issues there. And, of course, myself, Randall.
And this is Beta Sheep, episode 6, like Randall said. The intersection of science and society. Don't forget our tagline.
Yeah, so well, I mean, it was in the intro 2 or 3 times. We got to drive the brand home. We got to drive it home.
Yeah, I mean, we got to make sure people, the millions of listeners walk home tonight knowing that is our tagline.
Because, we are at the intersection, the crossroads, the two paths of science and society.
And this week we're going to be talking about some trending topics in science, as we always do. Of course, the big thing this week, which has been for the past couple of months, has been Ebola. Ebola coming up, and we're going to speak about the infected individuals that were brought over to the U.S. Some other stuff we'll be hinting on is robots. Will AI technology surpass human intelligence and take over the world? I don't know. Maybe. And let's see, some other topics. Legos. Legos is introducing the first line of female scientists. I don't know if this is long overdue. That's their part. And last, we'll be ending with some GMOs and Sharknado talk. So we'll see how that goes. All right. All right, so starting with Ebola, guys. I don't remember if y'all, when we first hit on this topic back in about 3 weeks ago, I think the number of infections was around 900, and the number of people that had died at that time was around 500. Right now we're sitting at about 1,300 infections with about 800 deaths as a result of the Ebola outbreak in West Africa, one of the largest outbreaks in history.
Is it 800 or 900? Because I swore I read somewhere that it was already up and past 900 deaths.
Oh, it might have passed that then. This is my last figure. Of course, I took this number. Let's see, it was on the 5th. This was Tuesday, so yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's something more recent than is definitely taken over. So, big thing this week was bringing over the 2 individuals that were infected. We have Nancy Wright-Bull, and Kent Brantley. Both are victims of the Ebola virus. They were brought over in the chartered Airbus and delivered to Emory University Hospital, where they have been isolated. Now, my question to you guys is, there's a lot of concern as to bringing these individuals over to the U.S. and if that would lead, people are more or less concerned, which I think is more of like the AIDS hysteria, AIDS scare, like people not understanding the transmission of the disease. Do you think we should be concerned that we have infected individuals on American soil?
How else are you going to be able to study it? You know, I mean, yeah, it goes from being, oh, that's a third world problem to avoid the more racist connotations for it to a now first world potential problem. But I mean, you can't really go and study something like that without bringing it here.
Right, right, exactly. And by bringing it over, I know with that we are able to isolate it, and we have our own chambers. Now, Elliot, maybe you can elaborate more on how the Ebola virus is transmitted.
Well, like, first of all, people have to understand that we have the virus, on the labs, and we've been working with the virus for a long time. So it's not like it's the first time the virus comes to the United States. You know what I mean?
Right, right, right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, we can hear
Okay.
you.
And like people have to understand that it's not like it's the first time the virus here. Like they haven't on the biomedical research center in San Antonio. They have Ebola and they work with monkeys. So they have in the United States. Also, they have to understand that the problem with
We're kind of getting some
Ebola, how it spreads.
connection issues there, Elliot. Kind of breaking out a little bit. But from my understanding, you're stating that they've experimented here in the U.S. before. More specifically, I think you mentioned San Antonio on monkeys. And with all the number of the numerous labs around the U.S. that have been able to test on Ebola and have it within their labs, there's been zero infections or outbreaks due to it.
So yeah, there is no point to be worried about. Plus, also, United States has a high level of sanitation, and people are prepared to. The problem with Africa is like when you have a person infected, they put like 3 or 5 people in the room. They don't have the gloves and the maintenance to keep the hospital clean. That's why people start getting sick.
Right, right, right. Yeah, Elliot, we're having a little bit of a connection issue with you. Maybe I don't know if are you hooked up on Wi-Fi or how you working this? Okay, you're on your phone. There's quite possibly a little bit of connection. Now,
My phone.
Rogelio, how do you feel about them bringing infected individuals over to America?
I feel that is it going to be a danger to the United States? Absolutely not. Like I said earlier, we have great controls to prevent infection or to prevent the individuals that are infected to releasing the virus to multiple people. I mean, we're going to take all precautions necessary. So if we can treat them, great. And actually, we can treat them. Now, apparently, we gave them some experimental serums that have been helping. We'll see in the next few days if they survive or don't. But actually, that reminds me of maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago on The Onion. Oh, The Onion came out with a story saying Ebola, 50 white people, 50 white deaths away before being solved or whatnot. And unfortunately, it's like, well, why haven't we given this serum over to Africa right now? Granted, it's experimental, but they have an outbreak. We just got 2 people who are infected, and we're like, oh, here you go. So, like, okay, I mean, it does justice to The Onion's article saying, hey, we only care about white people, which is very unfortunate.
Yeah, there's definitely some controversy or maybe even some discussions, I should say ethical discussions going on about what the CDC offers is when a medication has not been tested on humans, they do have the compassionate clause, or for a compassionate cause, they are able to offer these medications that are still in their experimental stage to individuals that, per their, what am I trying to say, they've co-signed off of it and per their agreement.
And I completely understand that, but also the CDC only applies to rules here in the States. This is the outbreak is in Africa, where the CDC has no jurisdiction. If the company wanted to really do the test to actually try and provide some sort of relief and get more information, they could go to Africa. Granted, it's a huge legal mess. It's going to be a lot of problems, but it's possible that Africa can take advantage. All the Sierra Leone, Ghana, and what was the other country that all is in the outbreak right now? Liberia. There you go. All those three countries can take advantage of this experimental serum if the company, I forgot what it's called, it starts with an M, if they brought that serum over, but they haven't. Now, I don't know why. It could be that it's very, very costly to manufacture, that they only have literally very few doses of it. It could be that it has a very short life, and so it wouldn't survive the travel, which would explain why they need to bring the patients here to the United States. I mean, there could be a variety of reasons, but it seems, at least through a skeptical or a cynical point of view, is like, you're just doing this because they're white and Americans. What about all these other people that are suffering because of this? And a big reason why we've talked about how Ebola is just continuing on and on is part of the culture in that area. It's a perfect example. I was reading a story how the family members took a quarantined woman who, unfortunately, she was dying, but a quarantined woman, took her to a local healing, I don't know what religious head would be called, shaman, witch doctor, whatever you want to call. But during all that, they spread the Ebola everywhere, and that's a big issue of to why there's this outbreak just keeps spreading and spreading.
Right, and I know the doses of that medication that you are referring to. Because it's an experimental stage, it's not quite meant to go out to a mass population, such as all the individuals there that are suffering from this. But in addition to that, the vaccine is only able to prevent those that are at risk right now that have not contracted the disease already. So you actually, we're able to prevent them from going on. And we got into this discussion last time as to why a more efficient treatment has not been developed, and for the mere fact that it's not profitable to pharmaceutical companies. So you definitely have, a thing of, is it going to make me money, and how many people are going to be serviced from that? I think right now here in the Western culture or Western society, most of us are not overly concerned about the Ebola virus outbreak unless
you're a U.S. senator.
Until it comes over to the U.S.
Sorry. I apologize about that. It's just that I've read a recent article saying a U.S. senator that are part of our, our huge influx of minors coming in from the South that are going for, they call it illegal immigrants. Yeah, they're like, well, they could be bringing Ebola. It's like, really? Dude,
yeah. I mean, you got things like that. You got the New York posting Ebola fear going viral, and then you have Donald Trump over here tweeting, Ebola patient will be brought to the U.S. in a few days. Now I know for sure that our leaders are incompetent, and then in caps, keep them out of here. It's just spreading this hysteria over something that, people need to understand the way it's transmitted. One, these individuals are being put into isolated rooms, and these facilities were designed to just do that, was isolate these individuals off from being able to infect other people. Number two is the transmission of the disease. It's only if you come in contact with bodily fluids that you become at risk of contracting the disease. So it's a lot like I call it the AIDS hysteria, because in the 1980s, despite people knowing the scientific certainty over its mode of transmission, people still were out there. You kind of just almost treat them like leprosy.
Yeah. That's ridiculous. But you're absolutely right. That's a very apt comparison.
Yeah. You almost have like two epidemics occurring. As well as, you have the actual epidemic over in Africa. The outbreak that's the result of poverty, inattention to the country's political leaders, and basically the lack of the wealthier nations to come in and help and provide aid to these people that are sick. And then you have another epidemic that's going on, and it's basically the lack of compassion and helplessness for these people that's going on here, and American citizens who are sick and need our help, but we're just turning our backs to them, basically.
Well, we have to understand that most of the people in Africa, they don't want to get treated. Some people in villages, they think doctors is bringing the disease to Africa. So that's how the outbreak started, because people that are infected don't go to the hospitals.
Right, right, right. And that's kind of what we touched on our last episode. Summer mentioned that there were some culture issues there that dealt with superstitions and basically the lack of trust for doctors and other political leaders coming over and trying to provide aid, and the fact that they do not want, or I'm sorry, lack of trust prevents them from becoming less susceptible to the disease. I think we talked about how the bodies were being disposed of, and the fact that they were just kind of sitting in these large rooms and these warehouses, just stacks of bodies, as opposed to either being incinerated or buried, and they're being left out in the open where the bodily fluids can come in contact with. Hey, Summer, how do you feel about all this?
Yeah. Basically, I agree with all of you guys. And I didn't really read into I didn't really follow up ever since our last discussion about it, but I know that China had already raised their concern about Ebola spreading at its rate right now. And then I know our social media in China had already, talked about it. Everyone was talking about it, and but then I was just basically glancing through and didn't really read over. So.
Right.
Yeah. But
Hey,
basically, I just find that people still are lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
Overall, and then basically, I think it's just education that people need to be educated about it.
Yeah. I think, let's see, there's another thing here from the WHO organization. It says African pig farms often play host to bats, allowing the disease to spread from bats to pork. And eating bushmeat, or the meat from wild animals such as gorillas, monkeys, and bats, is another thing that's causing these individuals to become more, I wouldn't say more susceptible, but to contract the disease. We did send a person recently over from Galveston, over there, August. I think on the article it said they were sending him out August 11th, but they actually sent him out a little bit earlier. I'm going to try and pull that up. Meantime, hey Randall, how do you feel about infected?
How do I feel about sending Sergio to Africa to cure Ebola? I feel really good about it because he can go help those people, and for us, we'll be getting rid of the scourge known as Sergio. So there you go. It's a win-win.
Are you personally scared of infected individuals being brought over to the U.S.?
Nah, bro. I live in Hawaii. I'll be all right.
So what happens if they start bringing them over to Hawaii in order to?
Much like the zombies, we just got to shoot them down, and then you'll be good to go. But really, as long as proper control, I don't know what you want to call it, exposure are utilized and precaution to make sure that nothing gets out, or alternatively, maybe get in to get it out. I think it'd be all right. I mean, what do you got to worry about? There's bigger things to worry about than the remote fear of Ebola spreading across the United States. I mean, geez, I'd be more worried about somebody carjacking me and then shooting me in the head than
or the Illuminati
spreading over here.
Hey, I found a more accurate figure here. It looks like of the number of infections, we are sitting at 1,700. If y'all remember from our first podcast, we were estimating there was going to be about 1,500. So now it's officially at 1,711 infections with 932 deaths. So you were correct, Randall, and I apologize for that.
Beat the spread. Beat the spread. Bam.
There you go. All right. Ebola. You think? What are your y'all's opinion on? Do you think it will continue spreading? Do you think in the near future it'll? I know the WHO organization is on the verge, and as well as the CDC, they're on the verge of announcing this as an international emergency. One is one thing. Do you think we've waited too long to aid and basically prevent this outbreak from going further? And two, do you think we're going to be able to cease the outbreak in due time, or are we on the path of the plot to the movie Contagion right now?
I think that the current outbreak, we've waited too long to send help. Unless we send a massive amount of help, the outbreak is just going to burn itself out and literally leave the three countries, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Ghana, utterly crippled just with the amount of deaths. But it will burn itself out. But they'll lose a big chunk of their population.
How about you, Summer?
Wait, what was the question? Sorry.
Do you think we're living out the the storyline or the plot to Contagion right now?
I don't know. I think we just need to better contain it. And we do have cases within the U.S. about Ebola, right?
Right. There have been isolated individuals within the U.S. But in addition to that, and I'm glad you brought that up, there have been immigrants or outside individuals that enter the U.S. that are carriers of Ebola. Later, these people find out that they have been infected,
Right.
and they get treatment, cured of the disease, through the treatment and that whole process. And at no point were they did they put anybody else's life at risk or transmit the disease.
Yeah, exactly. Or cause a pandemic. So I think if we we can absolutely contain it. We just need cooperation with the government and the people, for sure.
Right. Eliud, any input on this?
I think United States is going to be fine because it's United States first of all. Second of all, we have to understand the importance of this outbreak is because it went from one country to another. You know what I mean? Went from Sierra Leone to Guinea. And the outbreak in May, that's when the Sierra Leone, that's where the epidemic started. In May, it was a big. So I think people are going to die. The outbreak is going to go to a point. It's not going to kill more people, and it's going to go down.
Yeah, so we'll definitely keep on this, especially with this podcast that follows the trending topics in science. Recently the CDC and the White House has announced that they're going to send more experts over. And that's kind of what's happened recently with the individual from Galveston. He was sent over. He's worked on Ebola cases, and he's one of the experts on that. Another little side fact on this is I'm from San Angelo, Texas, and this Dr. Oh man, I forgot it. I already left his name, but the first individual that was brought over here that was infected is actually from Abilene, Texas. So that's kind of interesting, kind of close to home here in Texas.
I hope that specialist from Galveston, Sergio, does a good job over there. I'm hoping that they have some great success in finding a way to contain the virus.
Now, let me ask you something, Randall. Per our very first podcast, you stated that you use was it African black soap?
Yeah, it's good soap.
Now, has this Ebola outbreak caused some concern in your hygiene product choices?
No, because I switched over to peppermint soap because it gives you a nice peppermint feeling.
Oh, so, okay. Good.
But I mean, I will cite this, and when I was looking up I don't know what you want to call it, I guess being a good economist, when I was looking up all the various prices for the product, I did come across a paper that stated that while you can't necessarily use African black soap as Ebola deterrent, but there are some antibacterial properties to it that can help to, much like regular mass-produced industrial soap, keep bacteria and other nasty little things off of you when you use it. But I don't know. I mean, hopefully they're bathing and they clean their hands and it's helping. But I'm a little skeptical of the efficacy of something like that versus I don't know, Dial or whatever.
I would
Yeah,
totally
I
agree.
wish they had more studies for that kind of thing, because that'd be a pretty interesting thing to read about.
Now, on CNN Health,
Roy's phone agrees with me, apparently. So.
I'm just gonna turn him down until we have him speak. His phone keeps going up. Let's see here. CNN Health put out 5 reasons to not panic. Number 1 being that it is fragile in reference to the Ebola virus. Ebola virus is incredibly fragile. And here they have an individual from the CDC stating that the Ebola virus spreads through direct contact with blood, secretions of other bodily fluids of ill people, and indirect contact. For example, with needles with needles and other things that may contain these fluids, and for some reason that you come in contact with that. So that's one reason. And let's see, number 2, we do understand how Ebola works. From the CDC stated that Ebola is a virus that can be stopped and not spread in hospitals. So, this hysteria is just a lack of education. And number 3 being that we have the resources to contain it. The 2 American patients with Ebola were flown to the United States in a plane outfitted with an isolation pod. I don't know if you have caught pictures of this isolation pod, the chartered aircraft that they were brought over, but it's something to look up. Definitely pretty cool. And number 4, our medical staff is ready. Like Eliud stated earlier, that we have protocols for treating virulent diseases such as this, and we have protocols, and we have the means of isolating it and treating it. And lastly, here it's airports are on alert. It says at African airports in the Ebola-affected region, passengers are being closely screened. Health experts are watching for people with high fevers. Those that have high temperatures are removed and monitored while doctors test their blood for Ebola. So there are different means, put into place. And I think people that are really concerned about the spread of disease coming over here, or if they people are just running rampant over there and spreading disease wherever they are, there are checkpoints being put into place and other screenings that are preventing the disease from spreading more than what it is. So I think I've stated.
Definitely whenever that SARS happened back in, I don't know, 03? Was it 03 or 04, 05? Something like that. And then I went back to China, and then at the airport, at every connection airport layover we had in Asian countries, we had those checkpoints and temperature checkpoints and fever checkpoints, anything like that. And then people actually were suited. They were suited up and then had some medical equipment, and then they board the plane before we deboard the plane. And then they checked every single one of us before we actually stepped down the airplane. Yeah. And then after we get to China, it is recommended for everyone to stay home for 7 days. And then if you have fever or flu-like symptoms, go to the hospital and then basically quarantine yourself. So I think it's very definitely containable.
Right. This past weekend, I was at a hospital, and I was speaking to some of my friends. Some were nurses, some were pharmacists, and they were telling me about some of their conversations with their colleagues, and that they were concerned about the outbreak. And even at that level, I was like, I mean, at this level, you need to understand. Especially a nurse. I would think a nurse would be already educated on how these fluids are transmitted. It's just like, for me, it's just like HIV. And here we have treatment facilities for individuals that are infected with HIV, and we know how it works, and we have the ability to treat it and without causing harm to people that aren't infected, without spreading it. So say that. All right. Hey, Roy, you got any last input here for our Ebola topic?
I think I said my piece.
How about you, Elliot? I know you kind of have a bad connection, but go ahead and give us your 2 cents.
No, I think we'll be okay. We got to remember that malaria and influenza kill more people every year than Ebola, first of all. So it's just something will come and go. We'll be okay.
Awesome. All right, guys, I want to jump into this next topic, and it's about this new line of female scientists that LEGO has put out recently. Did you read about this, Summer? And I ask you because as a female scientist, um, how do you feel about this? I mean, growing up, because I personally, did not see females portrayed as scientists, in our toys. They always have that separation of
Legos are not female. I don't know. I didn't read about that. I didn't read about that article, but
This is let's see. This is put out by USA Today, and it's the 165-piece research institute features a female paleontologist, chemist, and astronomer. And the box cover shows them mixing chemicals in the lab, building a T-Rex model, and peering through a telescope. So,
awesome.
how do you feel like this is going to influence kids into the field of science?
Uh,
For sure.
Hey, Roy, any input on how this is going to affect the field of science in terms of females getting more involved, especially in terms of children?
Honestly, I think it's gonna bring a whole new crop of women into the science fields. Actually, right now I'm the vice president for ACMW, Association of Computer and Machinery on Women, and essentially our goal is to get more women into computer science, computer engineering, electrical engineering, and try to push them out. We do a lot of stuff with Girl Scouts, with middle schoolers to try and get them to stay in computer science if they like it. And getting them exposed even younger, I mean, into all sciences, because this is not just computer science, computer engineering, but to all sciences. Getting them exposed when they're younger with playing with Legos, hopefully other things come about as well, will get them thinking, hey, I can do this. Hey, I want to do this. I mean, if they don't like it, they don't like it. That's perfectly fine. But if they like it and they get discouraged because of all the basically it being a boys' club, that's ridiculous. And having these toys, having more things that show it is normal for women to go into the science fields. It is, we want more women in the science fields. I think it's going to help the younger generation actually go into it.
Nice. Now, the reason Lego released this set was this note that was written by a 7-year-old. Her name is Charlotte Benjamin, and some of the things she was complaining about was that the girl toys were very girly. All the girls did was sit at home, go to the beach, and shop, and they had no jobs. But the boys went on adventures, worked, saved people, had jobs, and even swam with sharks. And in response, this is Lego coming out with this 165-piece set. Like I said, you can buy it for $19.99, and it was released on the 1st of August, and now it features more female scientists.
I'm just thinking about the demand for this set of toys. Not sure how many girls will go for it, and mostly the consumers for these Legos are boys, obviously, and I don't think a lot of girls are introduced to this.
Actually, I remember reading in the past study that about 40% of the people who buy Legos are for girls or for women. I mean, that's not just a very little percentage. It's a huge market share. I mean, it's just that people think, oh, it's just for guys, or it's, oh, just for this. No, there's actually a huge market share of women into Legos. So I think it's a great idea with this. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, statement put by Lego was that the Research Institute has everything that you need to explore the world below, around and above us. So they really branched out in this first set of female scientists. States that help the paleontologists study the origin of dinosaurs with the magnifying glass, map the skies of the astronomer and her telescope, and assist the chemist as she carries out experiments in her lab.
But did they though? Did they really branch out here? It's one thing to be like, oh, this is a great thing, and I guarantee you, if Sergio hasn't bought one already, he's going to. So you got one buyer right there. And I'm going to rag on him through this whole podcast because he's not here, and I don't care. And I'm a little surprised that it's only priced at $20 because you think something as new like this, and it's considering it's Lego, would probably be charged like $80 just for 165 pieces because that's just how they do it these days. Yeah. But I mean, you would think that if they really wanted to incorporate this as a regular thing, they would do it for all the sets and not just one separate set that has women being scientists. Maybe I'll be less skeptical on a ladies UFC Lego set where you could go and beat up each other in the octagon or whatever, or some other kind of crazy thing that's really integrating real life, our regular world, into the Lego world.
Right, and I agree with you, Randall. When I said branching out, I meant they used different fields of science to kind of branch out within the field of science. Now, definitely with the initial release, they've already stated several of their leading, I guess you want to say, franchises or people that carry the Lego products have sold out, and I feel like Lego's kind of on this high with the high with their success with the movie, which I didn't catch the movie. Did any of y'all catch the movie?
You need to see it.
I recently saw it.
Yeah, pretty good movie.
Pretty good. It's not bad.
All right, so yeah, especially with the
Well, worth watching.
Yeah, I'd watch it.
with the success of the movie, I feel like Lego's on this high, and in response to this is only upping their game more, and it would be I think it would be a mistake on their part to, like you said, not branch out to other sets and incorporate female figurines in there.
I want to see the Lego Lady UFC set. I want to see that. I think that'll be pretty awesome.
That's Randall's dream.
That's my dream. I'll write a letter.
We all have dreams.
But Randall brought up a very good point. If this is the only set Lego does, it's like, dude, it's okay. Well, that's ridiculous. You just wanted here's a pat on the head for doing a good job. They're not actually interested in changing the dynamic that they have there. Now, if they keep on pushing new set after new set after new set, or and so on, if they actually make it into part of their main product line, pushing out female characters, that would be wonderful. That's the change people want to see.
Yeah, I was one of those kids with Mega Blocks. My parents never bought me the official Legos. So.
Oh, you're that kid. Oh, I think I need to leave this podcast. I'll see you guys later.
When the other kids would come over and be like, "You got Legos?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got Legos." Pull up my Mega Blocks. They're like, "Oh, I thought you had Legos." I'm like, "Oh." All right. Get you guys. Elliot, any input on this?
No, I think it's
Hey
pretty
there, Elliot.
good idea. Can you hear me?
We cannot hear you, Elliot.
That's okay.
All right, Elliot, struggling with the camera over there. All right.
He's gone.
Now I have a little sound clip for Mr. Neil deGrasse Tyson that I want to play for you guys, and it's in reference to GMOs. Here we go.
Is that practically every food you buy in a store for consumption by humans is genetically modified food. There are no wild seedless watermelons. There's no wild cows. There's no long stem roses growing in the wild, although we don't eat roses. You list all the fruit and all the vegetables and ask yourself, is there a wild counterpart to this? If there is, it's not as large, it's not as sweet, it's not as juicy, and it has way more seeds in it. We have systematically, genetically modified all the foods, the vegetables and animals that we have eaten ever since we cultivated them.
Now, Mr. Neil deGrasse Tyson brings up a good point, I think, there. I've recently been getting into health foods more and more, and you see this everywhere in stores as non-GMO product, non-GMO product, non-GMO product. But I think people don't understand. There's another case of not really having the understanding of what exactly it means to be non-GMO. Rogelio, should we be overly concerned with GM foods?
I don't think so, honestly. I mean, you have to be, yes, you do have to be slightly wary, just because the fact is, with GM foods, you are actively changing its genetics. I mean, you're messing with it, not through artificial selection or whatnot. I mean, you're actually messing with the genetic code. But all the hysteria surrounding it, no. Now, the business practices behind GMOs, yes, that's an entire different conversation. But GM plants themselves, no. I mean, a perfect example is we probably would not be able to feed our world population right now if it weren't for GMOs. The fact is that GMOs help create grains that give us much more grains. That gives us 30-40% more yield. If we didn't have that, we have GMOs to thank for that. We have plants that are more resistant to insecticides, that are more resistant to diseases. I mean, a good example of something that got screwed over because of a disease is the bananas, or the old Michelin bananas. I forgot what type we use now, but back in the 60s, they had a fungus that they were all the exact same bananas, so that fungus got to all of them. We had to switch to a different type of banana. The thing is that if we might have had been able to actually genetically modify it to fight against that type of fungus, we may have kept our old Michelin bananas. I have no idea how they taste like. I've never tasted one. I've heard they're good. Anyways, but I think GMO foods, for the most part, are good for us. They help provide a higher, well, I can't say higher quality, but they definitely higher quantity of food. Because if not, we would have had much more starvations than we have now.
And what would we do without colorful carrots and apples? Am I right?
Absolutely.
Randall, what are your concerns towards GMOs and GM foods?
There's no, you can't really say something like that because since the beginning of recorded time, you have food being modified in order to feed more and more people. We wouldn't exist if we weren't busy modifying everything we did as a civilization evolutionary tactic in order to increase our populations. And in that sense, there's nothing really that bad about it. The concern is the concentration, or in my opinion anyway, is the concentration of patented genetic, I'm not a scientist, sequences are in the hands of the few that may eventually start doing things that would affect those products or those plants, those animals, anything, and that then would eventually affect us and may have already been affecting us. I don't think I'm going to give an unqualified thumbs up to GMOs and start telling everybody, hey, you should go drink yellow food coloring number 40. It's great. There's certainly a lot of stuff bad about it. There are a lot of products out there that are bad for you, and there's a lot of misinformation as to how they should be used on both sides, but I'm going to lean being more against it than for it because a bunch of these hippie folks who are vehemently against GMOs are going to be spreading out the same kind of propaganda that those who make their money from it will be. So it's good to be informed about your product. It's good to know just what it could do to you. But that doesn't mean that we should just go ahead and write them off completely as a way to feed ourselves because then it's going to make things even harder than they already are given the reduction of arable land and all that.
Right, and I agree with you. I mean, there is a clear distinction here between now I think some foods have been modified recently, and you have like tomatoes that are really red, and they have been modified that way, genetically modified to represent a redder tomato. And in doing so, sometimes when we go for attributes based on the visual as opposed to the actual nutrition of the food, that is what we're sacrificing. We're sacrificing how the food looks as opposed to how it actually nourishes our body. I think there's a distinction between that when you have genetically modified foods. Going back to the banana, we do have the bananas. If you look at earlier generation bananas, they're much smaller, and as over time as we've put in these genetic modifications, or have you just let nature genetically modified, or we put them in the presence of other bananas that maybe were elongated and grew more sufficiently in different climates. In that case, I feel like that's where GMOs are benefiting society and the ability to grow more foods and make them more accessible to more people. However, when you start changing a food based on its physical attributes, and when I say that, I mean purely like based on visual aspects, you start losing you put at risk some of the nutrition that you're actually getting from that food.
I think it would be nice to have, and I don't know how feasible it is to have something like this, but I'm just shooting out ideas because, why not, right? If they had some kind of a database and cooperative, I don't know, what community working group, whatever you want to call it, kind of like how they have with open source programming right now, where everything's kind of tracked and everybody gets to see changes that have been done and comments related to that and all that kind of stuff. That they had something similar to that for this continual genetic changing that goes on for certain food products that once started out as one thing and is now slowly being bred into a whole bunch of different things, and just really getting to see. I mean, yeah, of course, not everybody's going to follow that, because for a lot of folks that's going to be beyond their technical knowledge or what have you. But for those who are interested and want to both provide an abundant food source for everyone, as well as protect the integrity of the plants, of the animals, of everything that gets genetically modified, I think it'd be pretty good to have. It'd be a better way of really having checks and balances as to what's going on than to keep it in the hands of the few without ever getting seen by, I don't know, more public non-profits who would analyze stuff like this or what have you. I don't know. Idea sounds worse the more I talk about it.
Okay. No, I definitely see what you're saying. As a central database, basically everyone's informed of how a food has been modified. I think kind of what you're pointing at or trying to get to.
Yeah. And continual modifications, that information gets updated, and everybody can see what's going on. With the use of the internet, everyone could literally see that, like a SourceForge or a GitHub or something like that for coding, and they can really see. They changed this. What do you call them things? They changed this gene, and now it looks more red, or they added in this other gene and crossbred it or whatever, and now we got seedless watermelons or some junk like that.
Going back to like the patent that they have on these modifications goes back to Monsanto. Has anyone seen the documentary Food Incorporated?
I have not.
No.
It's on Netflix, and it's definitely a good documentary. And one of the things that happens there is one farmer is growing with a Monsanto genetically modified food, and some of the seeds, while he's a seed cleaner, so he goes through there and he cleans up the seeds, and some of the seeds get left behind it in his machine. And so when he goes to the next farm to clean it, what happens is that some of those seeds get mixed in. It's just a few of them, but over time, those the farm nearby that did not pay for the patent of the seeds starts growing the genetically modified crop, and he actually gets blackballed from the farmer society as this individual that has spread this patent seed without permission and is now being sued by Monsanto. So, some of that comes in. You'll see that a lot with people protesting against GMOs. Is that they're also against Monsanto and what they're doing to our foods, and that they're.
Oh, that's a big thing here. Actually, I think they just banned the planting and farming of GMO foods on the island of Kauai, and I think they're trying to do it out in Maui too, if I remember right. Because that's a real hot button issue with the local farmers that aren't Monsanto, as to not letting that stuff come in and what they think has ruined the native land and the native flora and fauna and all that.
Right. Summer, do you buy GM products?
Yeah, I do. I mean, Yeah, we do. We're more conscious about it right now. Trying to buy everything natural, but I think sometimes it's unavoidable. Like, especially, I don't know. It's just too many choices, and then obviously when you're looking at GMO food that are more, I don't know, I guess cosmetically more appealing to you. They look better, the colors are brighter, and they look bigger.
And
So
with the
And it's cheaper.
probably, yeah,
well,
and they're even cheaper. It's just economically, I think it's affordable as well. So
yeah, with genetically modified foods, we definitely get some nutrient-packed foods, and definitely a potential solution at solving world hunger.
right,
Uh, Another thing that always gets me is organic and non-organic foods. Without you actually knowing the water table and the soil compilation of certain farms, you don't know if you're truly getting something that is organic. And alongside with that, there are some vegetables that it doesn't matter whether you buy organic or non-organic as long as you don't eat. It's many vegetables with hard rinds, such as cantaloupe and cucumbers, stuff like that. As long as you're taking the skin off, it doesn't matter whether you buy organic or non-organic. The fact that everything is getting trapped in that rind and you throw it away, then you might as well buy the cheaper product, unless you just
right,
like spend more money for foods that are labeled organic.
right.
Let's see. Genetically modified foods have given us graisins. Do y'all consume graisins?
Oh.
No,
What's a
I've
grazin?
never heard of them.
Graisins?
Craisins or grazins?
Graisins. It's a giant raisin.
No, I never had that.
Yeah, this is produced by Japan's National Institute of Genetics, and it's given the nation's love for large fruits of all kinds, and it's definitely provided them with large raisins there.
That's funny, actually, because I don't know if you've seen those trying to, in the abandoned factories that they're not using for, say, production of semiconductors or other things, they're actually trying to grow produce in those factories and try to make it a completely self-sustaining setup that you can just grow plants without any exposure to the natural sunlight, rain, or anything like that, but just solely within a factory. And I think they're having some success with it. I'm not too sure about that.
You bring up a good point, Randall, that I have seen some places start to pop up that, as opposed to having a nicely manicured lawn, what they're planting instead are plants that produce fruits and stuff like that. And instead of making your yard just this nice decorative outside entity, you actually make it something that can provide food to you. And I like that. I'm not sure where, but they have implemented the first park that is like this, and actually as a way to help possibly feed the homeless there and provide food for them as another means is just growing like apple trees, orchids out in parks as opposed to having these nicely manicured parks. Let's just plant a bunch of apple trees and people can eat from there. Not a wild
Yeah, you
idea.
see a lot of that here.
Yeah. Where would we be in the world without plouts? Huh? I've never ate a plout. Have y'all ate plouts?
Wow. No idea what that is.
Plum, plums and plum and an apricot.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
And I've consumed some tangelos in my lifetime, definitely. It's a mixture between a tangerine and a grapefruit.
I want to try all these now.
Guys, I gotta go. So
Oh, okay, Summer.
keep going.
Adios.
All
Have a
right.
good night.
Thanks for having us on.
Good night.
And thanks for joining us.
Bye.
What's this last one I want to hit is Lamatos. Who can guess what a Lamato is? Or maybe Lamatos.
Lemon and a tomato?
There you go.
Oh my god.
And this was actually put together with Israeli researchers. It says, unlike other genetically altered fruits and veggies, It appears that Lamito was solely an experiment to determine if it was possible to make a tomato give off the scent of lemons.
Huh.
And
Interesting.
diabetes-fighting lettuce. There we go. I don't know what makes it. Let's see. Living with it means, this is in terms of diabetes, is one of the most frustrating, life-threatening illnesses. Now, the University of Central Florida, they created a genetically modified strain of lettuce that carries the insulin gene. The lettuce cells protect insulin on its journey through the digestive tract. When the insulin reaches the intestines, the body's natural insulin-producing response is triggered. There you go. Boom.
Huh.
There you go. Genetically modified foods, providing a future and adding to the progress.
Sweet.
Let's see. One last thing I want to hit it. Randall, are you still with us? I'm not sure if Randall's still with us here.
Yeah, I'm here, but when Summer left, it knocked me out of the call. Yeah.
No. Okay. Let's see. Last thing I want to hit on is how many of y'all caught the flick Sharknado?
I have not seen it yet. I've been
I
wanting
have
to
not
though.
seen that.
So have you heard about it though? Right?
Yes, tornadoes
Yeah.
over water, sucking up sharks and bringing them to nice terror to all around.
Yeah, I think I have actually a little clip on here. It's the trailer put out, which is by the movie company Asylum.
Hurricane David is poised to be the first hurricane.
It's a storm. That's what's driven them all up north. I've never seen so many of them nor so bold.
It's barely even raining.
It's flooding here, and not the plumbing, the ocean. You need to go home.
I'm not going anywhere.
Storm's coming, and it's coming fast. Just can't sit back and watch this.
Tornado's heading towards the airport. We need to destroy it before it gets to them. Watch out!
Yeah, it's just ridiculousness. I mean,
Wow, it sounds so campy. I need to watch this.
basically, you have a Sharknado. You have a hurricane moving towards the shore, and a group of sharks following in front of it. And incidentally, what happens? They combine, making Sharknado, delivering sharks at high wind speeds and killing off individuals. So you have a bunch of people shooting into the air, killing off these sharks, and Tara Reid stars in it. So her career is definitely at its climax. So there we go. And recently they put out Sharknado 2, the second one. That's what it's called. Sharknado 2, the second one. So.
Oh my lord. I have to watch this.
Yeah, these B-list movies, especially this one, Sharknado, has apparently broken a lot of records in terms of ratings and the amount of times it's been tweeted when it premieres. So that's something to think about. I don't know what it is about these B-list movies that get people motivated to watch them in the first place, but.
True. Actually, that reminds me of last year when during the debt ceiling crisis, that when the government shut down, like right before that, there was a congressman. I don't remember if it was a representative or a senator, but he tweeted, "It's like, when is this gonna finish? I can't wait to watch Sharknado." I'm like, really? But, I mean, that just shows the priority. I want to watch Sharknado over fixing this process.
Oh man, classic. Yeah, Sharknado is something else. Asylum is the same. Yeah, are you still there?
Yeah, I thought I heard. Sorry.
Yeah, I think I'm back. It's like when Summer left, it just messed everything up for me for some reason.
Hang on, you are blaring over here. Let me turn you down a little bit.
Sorry. Damn Chinese.
We were talking about Sharknado, Randall. I don't know if you've been able to catch.
I couldn't.
You living in Hawaii, I would think would be most concerned about Sharknado.
We're going to have a hurricane hit the Big Island tomorrow night, so they might just get Sharknado tomorrow.
All right, well, just be careful, Randall. You never know. I mean,
isn't there another hurricane as well?
Yeah, there's one right behind it. It's Isel and then Julio. It's going to be a fun weekend.
Sounds like it.
We've already gone through the disaster preparation process, and now we're going to have to see if how how things are going to be at work tomorrow and on Friday, and whether we're even going to need to go in or not. This things are coming through.
All right. Well, best of luck, and I hope you survive Sharknado, my friend.
Sharknado times. I got my knife ready. I got my snorkeling gear ready. I'm ready to go.
You just need a chainsaw now.
Speaking of sharks, they recently got a 13-foot shark out here off of Port Aransas, and pulled him up as a tiger shark. So that was interesting. People go swimming at that beach all the time. Sharknado's just right there, waiting to take them all.
Oh, they had like, oh gee, I don't want to quote because I'm probably wrong. It's either 13 or 30 attacks off the coast of Maui done by various types of sharks, and it's like been more this year than they've had in the past few years.
Awesome.
Oh.
Well,
I want to say 30. I think it's 30.
Oh wow!
I saw
Yeah,
this.
Unusually high number of attacks this year.
Have you seen? It's a wetsuit that it reminds me of a wetsuit that's basically if you were dressing up like a zebra, and what it's designed to do is to when a shark looks at you underwater, it basically you are portraying a dead fish that's been cut up, so you're not inviting to the shark to come and be bitten or eaten. But another thing, how many people wear wetsuits at the beach? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's only going to be good for scuba diving.
Yeah, well, the guy that was on it, ironically, he was on Shark Tank. He was designed it for surfers when they're out and as a way of preventing shark bites. So.
Oh yeah, surfing too. That would make sense.
Yeah.
Good here.
Well, guys, we covered a lot of good topics here. We covered GM foods, the ladies in Legos as scientists, and more importantly, the Ebola outbreak. Anything else, trending topics that you would like to bring to this episode?
No, I think I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, there's some for next time, but that's about it.
Awesome, guys. Well, as always, I appreciate your cooperation and your time and in discussing these trending topics. And Randall, if you want to go ahead and sign us off.
Okay. Thank you for watching another episode of Beta Sheep at the intersection of science and society. My name is Randall, and with us is Miguel and Roy, and of course previously Eliud and Summer.
All right, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Adios.
See ya.
Third and speech and rope.
The intersection of science and society.
The intersection of science and society. I remember.
Episode of Beta Sheep.